So what headspace do you normally have to be in to write a poem? Like, do you have to like have the candles lit? Do you have to be under the influence of something? Are you totally sober? Does it just come out without your control and you don't expect it? Like, what's your headspace when you write something?
Before, because I used to do a lot of emo sad girl poems, it would it would just be like when I'm like depressed and like or if it's like 3 a.m. and I can't sleep. And those poems still exist in the realm, but nowadays Donald Trump really inspires me.
I guess like a lot of people consider Trump like an independent from he's definitely, you know, he's on the Republican side, but like a lot of people consider him somebody who's like broken away from the tradition, and that's why they like him. So I think that's why so many people are into him.
I guess. I don't know. I have asked this question for like 4 years as to how this has happened. So still ask the same
Did you
question.
hear that Kanye West is running?
Yep, totally did.
I saw him on the Joe Rogan podcast. I don't know if you watch the Joe Rogan podcast at all. But he had Kanye West on, and I never like watched him before. Like I was never into the Kardashian show, so I knew nothing about him. So I heard him talk it's like a 3-hour podcast. So like it's actually, that podcast is like one of my biggest influences for why I'm podcasting.
Oh, nice.
But they had Kanye West on there, like basically telling his perspective of why he's running for president and his plans and everything like that. This was my first time really hearing him speak like that. So in the first like 20 minutes, I'm like, man, this guy is passionate. Like he's really cool. Like I have faith in him. And then after a while, after a while, I'm like, okay, I think he would be like a great philosopher, like because he's very like, or maybe a great poet, or like he's a rapper. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't think he would be a good president.
No, he's wild.
He's too like his, like, I feel like a president needs to know when to shut up. Like, you know what I mean?
He's never known that in his entire life.
Yeah, like
I said that like I know him. Like, I was like, I've never known that.
My friend's like, I know him because I watched the Kardashian show forever. She's like, I've seen him a lot. And she's like, I literally know him personally. And I'm just like, yeah, like again, at first I was like, oh, he's passionate and he means it. And I actually do think he means it. I don't think he's lying. I think he really in his heart like wants to change the world. But that doesn't mean like he has the skill set to. You know what I mean?
He's like, I mean, like he's always been very passionate, and he's never been someone who's been filtered like in his like any interview, anything. He's always in the news for saying some kind of obnoxious shit, right?
Yeah.
And I don't watch the Kardashians, but like I also know that he suffers a lot with his like with his mental health.
Yeah.
So like it's hard to know where the competency is really coming from, or if it and when he talks, you're just like, why are you saying that? So I don't know. It's scary.
The funny thing is, I heard a lot of people in the comment sections like writing like, "What the hell is he saying?" I was actually, because I love to like, I feel like I think weird too. I was able to follow a lot of what he was saying, but the thing was, it still was like a trip. Like I had to really focus. Like I was just like, okay, I have to really focus on what he's saying, and I don't, like I said, I don't think he's going to be able to like negotiate with like another country trying to fight with us, or like another country trying to bomb us. Like I don't think being like, oh, but peace, love, bro, like I don't think that's gonna work like with that type of
is that what he's doing now? Because before he would be like, I'm the best, don't even try.
Right now his thing is like God has chosen him, and he's like God has picked him for this mission, and he did say he's like, I'm a genius and a visionary and blah blah blah. Like
he's not wrong though. He's actually not wrong about that. He's like he's just as a talent, he's like freaking amazing. But I think he should use his talent as his power and not try to do that.
That's what I was saying. Like yeah, he would be like a great philosopher, but not, or like a poet or rapper, but maybe not a great president. I still had one more question about how you write poetry. Oh. When you write your poetry, are you like heated in the moment while you do it, or is it more after you've calmed down and thought about it?
Oh no, I have to write it like in the moment, because if I calm down, then I'm like, oh, but it's not going to be as passionate and I won't find the right effective words. I feel like, because I'm pretty like generally passive, but like if I'm inspired, I'm like, ooh, gotta write it down right now, and then I'll go back and edit it and like make it make sense.
Yeah, because I was wondering if it's like something that you're like, I'm pissed, or like, have you ever been like crying and writing? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. There, especially the 3 a.m. ones. Oh my god, that's like that's my time right now. I'm like, oh, I'm about to tear up right now, and just keep going.
That's good. I feel like I need to get into that habit, because I feel like when I'm crying or really angry about something, I'm like too like I don't want to do anything.
Oh.
And like I feel like I should channel that energy into like writing lyrics or something like that. That's probably, but I always like go back to my lyrics when I'm like sober minded, like okay, and it's probably not the best idea. So my next question for you to transition to the next subject, you said you were also, along with being a poet, you were also an activist for survivors, for like sexual assault survivors.
Yes.
Tell me a little more about that, like what got you into that and everything like that.
Okay. I am a survivor myself. So trigger warning for anybody. But yeah.
I guess if anybody doesn't want to hear about this stuff, you can fast forward, scroll through this.
I mean, I won't be too detailed, but like still, I just want to give a warning. But yeah, I am a survivor, and my philosophy in life has always been like whatever negatives I have, channel it into something more productive, because that's the only thing you can do. If you learn a lesson, you teach other people that lesson. And so that's how I got into it. And then I found out about a coalition, New Jersey coalition against sexual assault. And then I started doing their social media tweeting, and I'm a social media ambassador for them. And all we do is spread awareness through that. And it's been learning. I've been learning a lot. And
yeah, a lot of women. That's really awesome. I liked what you said about like channeling that energy into something positive. I think that it's really good. I mean, okay, you should always recognize when you've been hurt and take the time to honor your feelings. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but I really like that you turned it around into a positive and didn't maintain in like a victim mentality. And I think that's really good, and probably why you're so productive and everything like that. Like you didn't maintain in this like I'm going to be broken forever because of this. You like took the power back and you were able to do something with it. A lot of women I know were sexually assaulted. Like it's crazy the numbers. I have been, when I was like a teenager, sexually assaulted one time, and then sexually harassed. But there's been some serious sexual harassments I've had, and then there's been some minor ones like every day. Like every day there's like a minor one.
And you're just like, girl, go away. But like I feel like the biggest, and this kind of goes into the other topic of mental health, I feel like one of the biggest impacts of sexual assault on a woman is how it affects her mental health. Like you can't trust for a long time. You know what I mean? All depending on, especially on the severity, like I don't, you don't have to get into the details of what happened to you, but I know in some cases is if it was like an aggressive rape types of situation, like some of those people can't trust for the rest of their life. They're afraid to like go home like at night, like without having some type of security system, you know what I mean? Like that. And that's like one of the biggest things, is like, and not only that, but so your mental health with like your safety, and also it could affect your self-esteem. Like I know a lot of women end up like relapsing into like eating disorders and like all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's like a really good thing you're doing to help the community deal with that sort of thing. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And like my only mission is to like, and it's been really cool for me to have people trust me enough and open up about their own experiences, and me being able to give them the resources they need to like heal, because like it is very traumatizing. I personally was diagnosed with PTSD as a result of what happened to me.
Yeah.
And mine is not nearly as serious as what has happened to other people. Yeah. And like it's just been very, very fulfilling for me, because I'm able to get my message across and people are receiving the message. And also I'm able to help people get better and like live a healthier life, care for themselves, love themselves again. And that's the part about assault that's the most difficult for me, is like people who are victimized by it, they tend to start hating themselves when it's really not anything but a reflection of who did it to them.
I know exactly what you mean. I was just thinking about this before, because like I prepared my questions and I was like thinking in my mind what happened to me. And I just remembered, because I feel like women are naturally caring and giving, and even when they're hurt, they still have the intuition to like give, like no matter what. And I remember in my situation, like I was a teenager, and I was younger than 16, like I was a young teenager. And I remember like we were saying how women tend to give back. I remember like, because here's another thing, like a lot of people kind of like criticize women, like, well, why didn't you tell anybody? Because I didn't want to like mess up this person's life. That's how I put it. I was like, if I say something, I'm going to mess up their life. And like, rather than thinking about myself, like, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people will sort of criticize women for not speaking up about that type of thing. And a lot of women say the same thing. Like they're afraid of messing up the other person's life instead of helping their life. You know what I mean?
I know. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And it's also just like, we are like that. We just care too much. And like, I've also met males who have been assaulted, and they also are like that. They're like, we didn't want to say anything because and then there's the whole male ego aspect of it where they're like, we feel like we're going to get ridiculed if we say anything.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but I don't know how to explain it. Like, this is like this, when people do this, it's really them trying to like assert something within themselves by harming another person. So they've already harmed you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry, and they're already messed up enough to do that. So you don't have to worry about messing their lives up because they're doing that already.
Yeah, I guess as a teenager, my mentality was like, oh, well, what if they get in trouble and go to jail? And then what if my whole family hates me? Like, I thought I would be hated. And I finally did open up about it as an adult. Because as an adult, I thought, like, what if they do this to somebody else? And that was what gave me the courage to open up about it. And by the time I opened up about it, I went to like officials and they were like, oh, but the statutory, you know, there was like a statutory limitation on that type of thing. Like, if you don't confess this within 5 or 6 years, I think it's like 5 or 6 years, it's no longer considered a crime. But I'm still glad I said something because whatever was going on in that home situation, like maybe they could have investigated it further, knowing that had happened. Like whoever they lived with or any children that were in their life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, like a lot of women are afraid to speak up because they don't want to mess up everything in the family or, you know,
right.
or get accused of like, even in just minor situations. Like I said, there's only been one sexual assault in my life, but there was like, definitely sexual like harassments in my life. Like I remember one time being, a teenager and I went to Walmart with my parents and my mom and my stepdad at the time. And I remember, like there was payphones back then. That's how old I am now. They actually had payphones.
Me too. I know. I remember those.
Yeah. Some creepy guy called a Walmart employee and on the payphone and was like, hey, I was wearing a skirt, like an orange skirt. And he was like, hey, I want to talk to the girl in the orange skirt. And the employee actually handed the phone because maybe they thought I knew him or something.
Ew.
The employee was like, hey, someone called for you. Like, here's the employee phone.
Right.
And I was like 14 and they were like, I want to do XYZ to you in that skirt or whatever. And I was like mortified. I'm like 14 years old and some strangers calling me on the phone. Yeah. And
what do you say? You're like,
yeah, exactly. But where I was going with this is no, it's okay. I told my parents and they were like, well, you shouldn't have wore a skirt. I'm like, so that's the type of stuff that women put up with. Like and this is why they're afraid to say anything because the attitude is like, you're the sexual object and you shouldn't be. Like, it's like they make you feel like you're a dirty, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean. And like, this is exactly why I try to do the advocacy I do because I want to change this narrative. I don't know where it's come from, where it's like the woman or women's responsibility to handle, control what a male, mostly male behavior is. It's like they're their own individuals. If they need to like take responsibility for themselves and it's just so like.
Yeah, like I feel like a woman should be able to express herself. And not only that, but I was 14 years old. Like I was just wearing this
child.
I was wearing the skirt that all the other girls were wearing. I just want to be cool. Like I like it was like this little. I don't know if you remember this, but there was like this like Spanish skirt with like a flower on it. Do you remember that?
I love those skirts.
But they were kind of short and they like hugged your hips. But like literally all like the cool girls wore them. So I just wanted to like fit in. And I wore that skirt and like my parents are like, why did you wear this skirt? I'm like, why did you buy it for me? Because I couldn't buy it. I couldn't buy it myself. I was like 14 years old. But it's just like, it's crazy how like women get blamed. Like you'll even hear stories of like grown women who were raped and the people will be like, well, you were looking for it because you were dressed up like a whore. Like that's the type of stuff. Like
it's like, oh, okay. And it has nothing to do with the fact that you feel so insignificant in your life. You feel insignificant in your life. It has nothing to do with that. It's me. Yeah. And that's the thing I try to like, whenever I get a chance to speak up about it, is that every time you'll see it, it's just like whoever is doing the assault is usually just also trying to exert their like power, authority, quote unquote, by doing that because they feel so inadequate. And I just like try to let people realize that it's like, it's nothing to do with you. If you have ever been assaulted or harassed, it's really nothing to do with you and everything to do with the person who's doing the behavior.
I was going to ask you like about the psychology of that, of like why somebody would do that. So it has less to do with actual sexuality and more to do with control and power.
Yeah. And from what I've like observed in like most stories that I've heard, it's always been a power move. You'll notice that like I'll talk about in my situation. I knew the person for 6 years. We were actually friends for 6 years. And the minute I got drunk enough where I was incoherent, he took advantage of it. It's like, obviously there's something wrong. Like that has nothing to do with, I'm trusting you that enough that I'm getting drunk in front of you and you go ahead and take advantage of that situation. That's like behavior that's on you. That's not that. And that's what made me think. I'm like, why did he do that? And then I started reading more and more cases. And I'm like, wow, every single one of these, especially the ones against children and teenagers, that is completely, this person is feeling so
because a child or a teenager is very vulnerable and definitely weaker than the older person, yes. Like physically weaker. So it definitely makes sense that it's some type of like power. It has less to do with like actual sex and more to do with like, it's not like, oh, I got to get like, it's like, no, I have to assert my dominance and power over this person.
It's so sick.
Yeah. So do you think, now this is getting philosophical and a little deep, but do you think that evil exists in man or woman when they're born, or do you think it's developed? And that's a little intense of a question.
I like that question a lot, actually. And I think that it's developed. I think everyone is born pure. And then eventually disappointments are absorbed different ways by different people, right? Some of us use it and learn from it. And other people get so upset and so angered within themselves, they use it to try and destroy the world, right? And that's
so funny. Yeah. Like that's exactly what Kanye West said on the Joe Rogan.
Oh my God, I'm
Kanye. That's why it made me think of it, because he was talking about that. It's so funny. Like that's what I mean. Kanye is smart. He's smart, but he's more of like a philosopher. Like if you ask him, like, okay, well, what's your plan to like save us from the war? Like he's just like, I'm chosen from God. Like that's just like.
It's like, okay, great, but like, what did God tell you to do?
But yeah, that's exactly what Kanye said. He said that nobody is born evil. And I always wonder that, like, because I'm like, and I was like, that's like a really good perspective that everybody's born with a loving heart. Mm-hmm. I've heard some people say the opposite, like that some people are just born evil. Like I wonder that about like serial killers. Like, did they become that way, or were they just born like the devil? Like,
Yeah, I know. And it's interesting. Like, I always feel like, that like the root cause of most evil is like anger and how people process anger. And that's like, this is me going my Kanye flow, but yeah, I always just feel like it's like, and I'm speaking for my own self too, because I've experienced rage, especially before I got like in treatment for my PTSD and everything. I didn't know it was rage. I didn't know how to handle it, so I was lost. So for me, the way that I wanted to process it at that time, this is also going to be a trigger warning, but not to get into that time too much, but like, I had a lot of suicidal thoughts in my head because I thought, okay, the only way to get rid of why do I feel so angry? And when I get angry, I feel very weak and like exhausted. And I'm like, how do I get rid of this exhaustion? And how do I finally sleep? Because I wasn't sleeping for like 3 weeks at that time. Yeah. And I was like, I know. And this will permanently put me to sleep. So that's perfect. And then finally I was like, okay, I probably need help. And that's what made me realize, I think anger and the way that people like channel it and like try to like manage it causes a lot of behaviors. And yeah, I'm rambling now. But
my Kanye, I think the one thing that Kanye has over us is that he doesn't have that other thought that's like, oh my God, I sound like I'm rambling. Like I feel like we have that thought that's like, we're in the middle of rambling, but then we're aware of it and we're like, oh, I shouldn't ramble. I think he doesn't have that part, which is like probably good. Like I wish I had, because like you were saying, you overthink things. Like I'm the same way too. I'm very like I beat myself up. And I was talking about this on the other podcast, especially now that I have a podcast, I listen to them and I see all my flaws like on camera and everything, and like listen to my conversational flaws and my lack of,
but you're amazing. You gotta know that.
Thank you. Thank you. We were just saying this too, that it's like the curse of the artist. I feel like you criticize yourself, you know what I mean? But I feel like Kanye doesn't have that critical, like that self-critical. He's like, good for him. He's just like, I'm fucking awesome. Like, I'm just gonna flow.
But he's not wrong to call himself awesome too. Then that's what makes me so mad about him. I'm like, you're not wrong, but be quiet. Yeah.
So speaking of like, because we were getting into like the talk about mental health and post-traumatic stress and getting treatment for that, I think that's important to like bring awareness to that too. And I like that you bring awareness to that, because I feel like a lot of people think that like I go through therapy, I take antidepressants, and they've saved me like through a lot of like, I've been into that depressed place too, where I couldn't sleep. And when I went on antidepressants, it stopped. You know what I mean? Right. And like when you don't sleep for a long time, you have no idea. Like, if anybody out there hasn't slept for like at least a week, I never experienced. I've experienced insomnia in the sense that like there might have been a day or two where I couldn't sleep and then it went away, or like I slept shitty. But for the first time in my life, a couple months ago, I didn't sleep for like a week straight, and by the end of the week, like I thought I was gonna die. I remembered like shaking, like convulsing and shaking, and like I called someone for help, and I just went to them and I was like, I haven't slept for days, like please help me, and they got me NyQuil. But like going on antidepressants and getting therapy, like all this stuff really helps. So I think it's important not to like think like these things are a weakness, because so many people go through these things, and it's so important to be able to admit. Now I'm going through my like Kanye West flow, because literally I just like did a Kanye West thing where he couldn't even like finish a sentence and he just goes to the next thing. I was gonna say that these days, like people throw around the word toxic too much. They're like, this one's toxic. That's a toxic behavior. Like this is toxic. And I'm like, but aren't we all sometimes toxic? Like, don't we all sometimes have these like behaviors that are quote unquote toxic? I think it's like important to recognize when you're in a downtime and be able to seek help. You know what I mean? I don't know, like what your thoughts are on that.
No, I agree. And therapy is something that was new to me until 5 years ago when this happened, and I was like, what do I do? Okay, maybe I should actually try therapy. And it's actually a tool. Like I think everyone should do it. I think that a lot of us have. Okay, I'm itching my nose. I swear to God, I'm not thinking here. I was just like,
I've been like the one. I didn't know wine could make you like burp, but I'm like, like
no, I just realized I was doing that, and I was like, there's a camera, but okay, but what was I saying? Yeah, but I think that everyone should go to therapy for one thing or the other, because we are all kind of lost, right? I feel like that's the quality that makes us human. Is like we're all kind of lost and trying to figure out things, and sometimes you just need the tools, and therapy gives you the tools to do it. And like you were saying, like for me, also the same thing. But with PTSD, it's fun because you think that someone's going to kill you at all times. So that was what kept me awake. So I wasn't I was probably shaking all the time, but either out of nerves or from sleep, and both of them combined was not a fun time. And and then finally my friend was like, no, you really need to go to therapy, because you are right now is not the you that you normally are. And I was like, okay, fine. Yeah, Tim can tell me about it and everything. And like I was saying, like I think I was telling you earlier, like in the Indian community, although it's becoming much more accepted now, so I will say that now, with the younger people, like older people still have a hard time even understanding that mental health is actually a really big issue that people need to pay attention to. And it's often like thrown under the rug if someone is like a little off, like, oh, this person hasn't been sleeping for, that person doesn't sleep, or this person sleeps in too much. Oh, that person is lazy is how it's like written off, right? And then like, it's like, no, but that's not there is something wrong if this person is always sleeping, or there's something wrong if this person not always alert all the time. Like, you know.
What's your opinion about mental health labels? Like, so for example, narcissistic personality disorder or borderline personality disorder or whatever. Do you think these things are real concrete things, or do you think these are things that are made up to try to, because I believe they're real things. And I also believe that even if they are fake things, it doesn't matter because it still helps the person. Yeah. What's your opinion on that? Like, do you think that that's real, or they just, what do you think?
So I think they're real things, but I think that oftentimes people are more than one thing. I have a family member who has been dealing with severe mental health issues for a long time, and they kept getting diagnosed with one thing, but they also had the qualities of of certain other types of things. And I'm like, okay, so trying to get a combination of the two, and that's what helped them in the end. So I think that those are real. Borderline personality, schizophrenia, depression, all these things are real things that people need to pay attention to, just like the flu is a real thing. Yeah. Because we're complicated, people are complicated, you can't just be one thing.
I agree with that too. Like, I do believe, I like exactly what you said. Like, because I've noticed like, oh, I have traits of this. I have traits of PTSD, but I have traits of like obsessive compulsive disorder. And sometimes these things kind of like bleed into each other. Yeah. And I know there's even a phrase for this in psychology. It's called like comorbid. Did you ever hear that? Comorbid disorders. It's like when comorbid disorder is like when you have one disorder, but it like you have another disorder with it. And I do think a lot of these traits like do bleed into each other. That's true.
Yeah. And it's like, And then also I can understand the other part where people are like, oh, maybe this is just like a human quality that we just like try to put a label to. I get that also, but I don't agree with it necessarily.
Yeah, I that's a really good point. I do see it from both sides of the story. It's like we're all human and we all have these qualities. Why give it a label? But then I think, so I do agree that maybe these things are made up, but maybe they're made up for a reason. That's the part of saying like, maybe giving it a label will help you deal with it. Like, okay, what is this thing we're drinking? We don't have to label it. We can just call it a liquid. We can just call it a liquid.
Yeah.
But hey, we can call it a wine. Well, whatever. It does make me drunk. So like, let's just, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it's like,
exactly.
You can get philosophical and say that about anything. Like I could say that's just a liquid. It's not an alcohol. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
You can even take it a step up and be like, do we really exist, or are we all just plugged into a wall somewhere?
Yeah.
Like,
So it's like to categorize these characteristics of people's mental health, and will help treat it. You know what I mean? So,
exactly. I think it gives awareness, which wouldn't otherwise be ignored in the Indian society. It was ignored. Like people are just like, oh, this person's lazy. But no, this person isn't actually lazy. This person's actually sick. You need to like get them the help.
I remember when like I first went to my family and told them that like I'm having some mental health issues and stuff. They were like, no, you don't. And like, cause I was having issues with like, my eating. Like I probably still seem like I have eating issues because I'm always eating healthy, but I'm actually at a really good place with my eating. Like I eat healthy because I like to eat healthy now. And like I eat enough, like I eat plenty of calories. But when I was younger, I wasn't eating enough and stuff like that. And then I went to a therapist and they like told me like, yeah, you have an eating disorder. Like, because I didn't have the traditional eating disorder where I starved myself, I over exercised. You know what I mean? So it's called orthorexia or something like that. It's like where you're obsessed with being healthy. And I told my family like, yeah, I have this problem. And they were like, no, you're just really ambitious. And I'm just like I'm telling you, I have like, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to tell you. And like some people, like you said, they just don't want to talk about it, you know?
Yeah. I think it's like, it's hard to accept for people, I guess. And it's like kind of sad because like, then why isn't it hard for you to accept that I have a cold? It's like the same thing, you know?
It's like I weigh 90 pounds and I don't get my period anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm just saying that might be a problem. Yeah. Like, there's like a certain family member who I think has body dysmorphia because they don't eat, and they also think they're really fat and they're just like bone thin. And I'm always like, ugh, eat something. They come to my house. I'm like, eat the food. And so like,
is it a male or female?
Female. And I think it's just, again, like the societal issues, societal expectations, plus like them just being like, no, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's how you have a problem. That's exactly. Oh, shoot.
I've been like, these wine glasses are so big compared to my normal wine glasses. So I'm like making a fool of myself here.
No, you're fine. I'm just like forgetting what I'm saying. So that should tell you. Rosé.
I actually asked the guy, like, because I'm normally a red wine drinker, but I always honor my guests and I get them what they want and I share what they want. Because, like, my philosophy is, like, it's their time here with me and I want to honor them. So I told him, I was like, I don't normally drink white. I'm a red wine drinker. What can you get for me that is kind of like a red wine drinker would like it? And he recommended this because he's like, it's drier. It's not overly sweet. So and I'm like, damn, it is good.
Yeah.
So that's all the questions I had for you today.
Okay.
So would you like to finish with another one of your originals?
Sure. I have one that's like, I was going to say much shorter than the other one, but it actually may not be.
Do you ever memorize them or do you just only read the script?
I memorize them and then immediately forget because I'm like...
It's the same thing with piano. Like I know a lot of pianists who definitely memorize their music, but they need it there just as like a security blanket. Like they're like, I need the music there in case something happens. So.
I used to play piano for a while too. And I remember like for recitals, I would always like, I would have it memorized and I'd be like, yeah, I got this. And then the next day she'd be like, oh, can you play the notes again? I'm like, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I need to work on like memory building activity.
Well, this wine will help. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, for sure. Be like, woo. Okay, so I have one called The Lioness. And this is like my female empowerment piece. So I figured this would be a good one to end it with. So, Lioness. I am a woman. You will hear me roar. Just like the lioness, I am built to hunt my prey and feed my pride. You try to silence me, but you forget that even the fact of your very existence is because of the power of a woman. You spread your legs wide trying to display your dominance, forcing me to have to inconvenience myself by standing, assuming that the message you are sending is that my role is to be subservient to you. You forget that my body is the same body that inhabits and brings to life a new body just by spreading my legs wide open. One accidental blow in between yours will close them instantaneously. A whole head, body, legs, and arms cuts through mine, and still mine won't, don't, and cannot close. So you dare silence my roar. Interesting. That's irony, since my roar is what nurtures you, supports you, and also allows you to feel like a man when you lay beside me in bed. The same roar that supports you when you feel inadequate. You dare diminish that? You call my roar a bitch while taking credit for my ideas because you are too inadequate to think on your own. The same roar that graciously allows you to do that while silently commending herself for thinking of the idea. You dare silence that. The same roar whose name you enjoy moaning in ecstasy. Now you call a slut, a dumb bitch because she left you after losing her patience with your bullshit after patiently tolerating it for several years. You wish to silence that? Let me just remind you that a lioness cannot be tamed. You can keep making your meek attempts, but I will always roar. A lioness, no matter the distress, will always remain majestic and have grace. We continue to roar, continue to hunt, continue to remain fierce, even when the lion sleeps. The lion tries to outroar the lioness, yet the lioness is the one who gets the hunt. Just like you try to shut down my strong female energy, and yet I still continue to flourish. I am female. I endure. I am female. I prosper. I am female. I will roar, and you will bow.
You're like, yeah,
no, you're generally.
That was awesome. That was amazing.
Thank you.
I like how passionate you get when you tell your poetry. I'm just like, she's like really into this.
I get the
like,
sass going.
Yeah. Like,
that's my sass.
And I like how you look over me like you're like, listen. Like,
and I looked at you and I was like, wait, no, I like, not you. Generally you.
That is Sen the Poet, everybody. She is an awesome poet and awesome person. Let them know where they can follow you and find you.
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram at r.sen. And yeah, that's it.
I had so much fun today. Cheers for being the first female and the 6th podcast episode. Thank you guys. We'll see you again soon.